I'm Joy Orr.
And I'm Kristen Kovach-Bentley, and we are the hosts of Retired Racehorse Radio.
Retired Racehorse Radio is your guide to the adoption, aftercare, and retraining of the retired racehorse.
We'll bring you expert tips from top trainers and professional riders and share countless stories of retired racehorses excelling in their second careers that will make you laugh, melt your heart, and open your eyes to how versatile these horses are.
We feature an adoptable horse each episode, so you may just find your next riding partner. Look up Retired Racehorse Radio and subscribe today.
This is the Horse Radio Network. This is episode 445 of Horse Tip Daily, a different horse tip, a different equine topic, a different equestrian expert every day. Horse Tip Daily brings the world of equine knowledge to you one day at a time. And today's show is sponsored by Kentucky Performance Products. Visit them at kppusa.com. Howdy, everybody, and welcome back to Horse Tip Daily. Well, today we have the fourth in the four-part series from thehorse.com with Christy West. They are doing regular segments on our Horses in the Morning show every Wednesday morning, 10 a.m. at horsesinthemorning.com live. And they did a series on laminitis, and we have the fourth in the four-part series. If you haven't heard the others, go back to the last 3 days at our website and take a listen to those. And then today you're going to hear the fourth in that series. We thought it was important to bring it to you simply because it's that time of year when horses eat too much and we have to worry about laminitis. And it was a very interesting segment on the different aspects of laminitis and grass and everything that goes along with it. And this one is taken off of episode number 129 of Horses in the Morning. And we're going to be back with Christy West and her guests, and Jamie and I from Horses in the Morning from the segment on laminitis shortly, right after we talk about other things involving your horse's health, and that's Kentucky Performance Products. Not every horse needs a supplement, and selecting the right supplement for your horse can be a science. Kentucky Performance Products simplifies your search for the right supplement, and they provide products that are scientifically developed to address the specific problems facing modern horses. Their website and customer service people can give you detailed information on each supplement, helping you find the right solution to your horse's problem. You can trust Kentucky Performance Products supplements to provide the ingredients you need in effective amounts so your horse gets the most out of each scoopful. Kentucky Performance Products, helping you keep your horses healthy, sound, and competitive. Visit them at kppusa.com. That's kppusa.com.
Health report. We've done 3 so far. As Christy touted, it is now April is the official Laminitis Awareness Month, so happy Laminitis Awareness Month, everybody. But we've got Big Christy from thehorse.com, and with her today, I'll let her introduce him because I just know his name is Steve O'Grady. So we'll say good morning to both of them. How's it going?
Good morning. Great. Glad to be on again, as usual. And my guest today is Dr. Steve O'Grady of Northern Virginia Equine. He focuses almost exclusively on equine podiatry, and he actually works a little bit with Jay Merriam on some of his outreach trips, his equestrian trips that we mentioned a few weeks ago. But his focus being almost entirely on the foot and as well on laminitis is the reason that he's here today. And I actually want to ask you a question, Jamie, because when Jennifer called me, she mentioned, and I apologize, I missed the early part of the show because I was actually working over a video on breakaway cross-country jumps that will come up in the next couple of days to coincide with Rolex. But she mentioned that you had a guest on earlier talking about a laminitic episode, and I was wondering if you could just give me the 10-second recap of that.
Oh, yeah, poor Mig. Richard the Mig Migliore. He is a jockey, a former jockey, and now works for HRTV. And he was saying that his daughter has an older Welsh pony, and she apparently, the pony had a little bit of a bout with laminitis, and so they've had to scratch her from the horse show. And as Glenn was saying, it seems like that time of year with spring grass coming in, no matter where you live, he's up in New York, is it, that time of year. And he talked about doing several different things and trying to get the horse sound, obviously not sound enough to show, but just comfortable. So yeah, definitely, it seems like it's that time of year. April is a good time to do this segment, I think.
Well, absolutely, and I think this segment is probably one of the ones that everybody's been waiting for, the segment on treatment. So, Steve, thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
So, talk to us a little bit about maybe cases like this pony when he's first recognized. What's the first thing you think about when you come to emergency treatment, or maybe even prevention of emergencies?
Yeah, that's a good question. If we just put everything in focus here, the structure in the foot that we're talking about is the lamina or the lamellae, that structure that suspends the bone within the hoof capsule and is basically the suspension of the horse, which is very susceptible to disease. Realizing some of the syndromes or incidents that can lead to laminitis is real important. Number one, horses still get into grain. Number two, with overweight horses or horses that tend to be on the overweight side, the new grass in the spring is certainly a problem. Having shoes put on your horse and the farrier trims the foot a little too short can lead into foot bruising and on to laminitis. Diarrheas, pneumonias, high temperature, transport for long distances, all these have the different medications. All these have the ability to bring on laminitis.
And I think, Jamie, as we were discussing several weeks ago, it's a whole lot easier to not break those model horses' legs than it is to fix them, and maybe the same thing with the laminitic foot. So if you recognize is at risk, that's the time to start acting if you find him with his head in the grain bin and things like that. So in those cases, Dr. O'Grady, what do you recommend to your clients?
Well, in those cases, especially with grain overload, some of the metabolic things is, number one, get your veterinarian involved. Number two, that with the thought process that these can lead to laminitis, there are a lot of things you can do. Number one, take the cause away. Number two, it's been shown scientifically that putting the feet in ice boots, very, very important. Number two, the use of acepromazine before the horse develops signs. That's a tranquilizer everybody uses. Has a good effect on changing the blood flow to the foot. Sometimes... Really?
Hold on. ACE, people are giving ACE to horses for laminitis. I didn't know that. But ACE is a drug that can be used in the muscle or in the vein for our listeners, and also it cannot be given to stallions. Do not give a stallion acepromazine. Am I correct there?
Yes, you are correct, because there has been many incidences that it will cause a paraplasmosis. In other words, the penis can come out and not be able to be retracted back in. You're exactly right. So it's not worth taking the chance.
So would you recommend, obviously, what I want to get is a picture of, we've called the vet, our horse is having a laminitic flare-up, and we've called the vet, and while we're waiting on the vet, say they can't come for several hours, you're saying put the feet in ice. That actually works. And then to also maybe give some acepromazine in the muscle, in the vein. Does it matter?
No, I think you're misreading me. What I was saying was that if you have an incident that has the potential to lead to laminitis, some of these things are beneficial. In other words, to prevent laminitis. And in the context of acute laminitis, when the horse is painful, then we sometimes use a different approach.
Okay, gotcha. So to prevent it. Okay, go ahead. Sorry.
That what we were talking about was prevention. Once we have the disease, then we sort of take a little different route.
And what is that route?
Okay.
Okay. Once we have, in other words, if your horse becomes painful, he has an increased digital pulse. You can put your hand down and his feet are warm. They often have a stance where they will put their feet a little bit out in front of them, reluctant to move, painful on the turns, always indications that laminitis could be a problem here. Again, a really good time to get your veterinarian involved. Number two, in the acute case, it's been shown scientifically again that laminitis is an inflammatory process within the lamina, along with an ischemic, in other words, a loss of blood supply. Therefore, nonsteroidal anti-inflammatory, butanamine, ketaphin, some of the other drugs are indicated. Secondly, for the pain response, because these horses are going to be painful. Number two, we look at methods of how can we support that structure that is damaged or it hurts. And in this respect, we look at a couple different things. And let me back up a little bit. When we have a horse with inflamed lamina, or if you have a foot, all feet have various forces on it. So the foot treating the foot in the acute stage is based on trying to change some of the forces. The weight of the horse, the way the horse breaks over, and the pull of the deep flexor tendon that exerts a continuous effect on the lamina. Are you with me so far?
Yes.
Okay. In laminitis, your veterinarian and your farrier a lot of times will have favored techniques or methods that they use. We try and look at the individual horse, the type of foot he has, the conformation, and then put a treatment that is suitable for that individual horse and what the owner can handle. Mm-hmm. We will often very easily put the horse in some sand. And what the sand does, it allows him to dig his toes in the ground, and it forms a nice cushion underneath the horse's foot. In other words, to give you some counter pressure on the bottom. I would advise you, if you're going to do this, you use beach sand instead of the construction sand. Okay?
Why is that?
Thing, pardon me?
Why beach sand instead of construction sand?
Okay, think about an hourglass. In other words, that you're timing your boiling water on the stove, and that has a very thin sand in it. So it's very flexible. It forms a very nice mold, very easy to keep clean, very easy for the horse to move in. Construction sand is a brownish, heavier sand, sometimes wet, doesn't have the same properties of the beach sand, and therefore you have some advantages in the softer, more textured sand.
Gotcha. It'll compact a little bit more. Beach sand, you can keep walking on it, and you're always going to sink in it a little bit.
That's right. And when the horse puts his toe in it, it just goes without hesitation. It just sinks in it very nice. So you're exactly right. Another very popular method is to go to the lumber yard and get some blocks of the 2 to 3 inch insulation board. They term it styrofoam. Cut out a block, the shape of the horse's foot, and tape those on with duct tape. It will compress and again form some very nice support or ground surface underneath that laminated foot. Another method we use quite often recently, and I don't do as many acute cases as I do chronic cases, is we use what we call wooden shoes. And with the horse painful, the horse can be just placed on these wooden blocks. We put screws around the outside of the horse's foot, and then we tape it on with cast tape. In other words, there's nothing that goes through the bottom of the horse's foot. One of the advantages of the wooden shoe is that it is beveled on all sides, so it concentrates the weight right underneath the bone and takes some of the force off the lamina.
But it's never a good idea to nail it on yourself, especially if you're a horse husband.
Yeah, it's a good question. If your horse is painful and you have an acute laminitic bout, his feet are painful. You have lamellae or lamina that are inflamed. They are compromised. the last thing you want to do is add more trauma to that foot by nailing something on or doing anything that.
Well, let me tell you, it wouldn't have to be laminitic for me to cause more trauma to the foot. So either way is bad news.
Okay, good point. Good point.
Well, Steve,
Jen, keep him away. Jen, just keep him away from Beaker at all times. That probably is the best thing. Keep him away from your horse. Yeah, there you go. Pick it.
I think Glenn and nails and screws and drills and horses just should not go together.
Ooh, good point. Good point. Just stay away from power tools, Glenn.
Some people think I should stay away from power tools total. So at all times, doesn't even matter if horses are involved. Yeah, Jennifer agrees with that.
Well, Steve, let me back up to something you mentioned earlier about bute and nonsteroidals for a laminitic horse. I think those absolutely play a role, but when should those be used? And I guess what I'm saying is, a lot of vets don't advocate the owner using those before the vet arrives because they want to see how sore the horse really is, right?
That's a very good point, Christy. But if you have a horse with acute laminitis, you obviously would have been in touch with your veterinarian, and that's something you can very, very much ask them. And that if you use a low dose, say 2 grams or something like that, on his advice, I think the earlier you can start, sometimes the more beneficial it'll be.
Okay. I just wanted
you could say, well, you have a headache all day. Well, I'm going to wait till 4 o'clock to see whether my headache goes or whatever, rather than taking a couple, ibuprofen, when your headache first starts.
Of course, and I think just the key point here is on the advice of your veterinarian. So your veterinarian already knows that your horse is sore. You may have already explained how sore he is, and it's not a matter of, okay, well, I'll just give him bute and not call the vet and see if he gets better.
Yeah, I want to make one point there, and with horse owners, butazole, phenylbutazone, or Banamine, Flunixin, these things, they're in the eyes of horse owners. They are analgesics, or they take away pain. Agreed, 100%. But in order to take away pain, you have to decrease inflammation. Therefore, in a laminitic horse, you have increased inflammation. So, the earlier you can get at that inflammation, the more beneficial it's going to be. Does it make sense?
Absolutely. And we talked a little bit about treatment strategies, but I think one thing that's important for people to understand is that these treatment strategies are going to work differently on different horses because they are so different. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, you're exactly right, and I want to let me make one point. Christy and I talked about this previously. Is that I try and base my practice. I think a lot of veterinarians are more and more moving toward what we call evidence-based medicine. And with laminitis, it's hard to recreate laminitis. Therefore, it's hard to do research on it. In other words, on treatments or have horses in the same plane. There has been no effective studies that acepromazine is beneficial after the horse shows clinical signs or has acute laminitis. There's no clinical evidence as to using DMSO, although I use DMSO for the first 3 days myself. Having said that, it has to be taken into consideration what is causing the laminitis. Obviously, if you have a horse that is sick, that has diarrhea, has just had surgery, has pneumonia, you have to, before you use some of these drugs, you have to decide whether they will fit into that particular syndrome. In other words, if you give acepromazine to a horse that is not hydrated, you're going to cause more problems. So I think you have to evaluate, in other words, what's causing it, the physical examination of the animal, and also sometimes a conformation of his foot. Because obviously if he has a little flat-footed, thin-soled foot, you may not want to put a lot of pressure underneath it. So I think it has to be really an individualistic thing for the horse, thinking through what is best for the horse, best for the owner to be able to handle when the veterinarian leaves as well.
Very good. And another point that you and I discussed is that your ability to treat these horses is inversely proportional to the amount of damage they already have.
Yeah, that's an excellent point. That's the way I you've seen it. I start off all my lectures. When you see a horse with acute laminitis, it means that in the developmental stage, from the time the horse had the insult, in other words, grain overload or grass or pneumonia, whatever, up until the time that you see the horse painful, that's what we call the developmental or prodromal stage. That's when you treat the horse for prevention. But during that phase, it is when the damage to the lamina is taking place. Now fast forward to the point where you have a horse with acute laminitis. He's very painful. Now, when the veterinarian is presented with this horse, vet farrier owner, you don't know the extent of that damage that has been done. And you really can't ever put a prognosis on a laminitic horse, in other words, how he's going to do, because that leads us up to our ability, vet farrier owner, ability to treat that horse is going to be inversely proportional to the amount of damage. If you take a horse that what we call sink, all the lamina all the way around the foot is destroyed and the bone just sinks down, these horses are extremely hard to treat if you can treat them. So our ability to treat horses with laminitis, improve them, make them sound, go back to work, whatever, is going to be dependent on how much damage we have to the lamina. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, in the early stages, you've got less damage, you've got more as the horse progresses. So I think another key point here is catch them early. Man, you think your horse has laminitis, call your vet. Get that treatment started, because it's a whole lot easier to fix that earlier than if you wait a few months down the road. You've got a displaced coffin bone, you've got a lot of changes within the foot. Your chances of getting a sound horse just keep going down as the case progresses, and especially if he's not getting the right treatment.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely.
So I just think that's one of the biggest things. I mean, I think we've all spent time around the barns where somebody thinks, oh, maybe he's a little bit laminitic, and we'll just we'll give him a little bute, or we'll kind of watch him for a little bit and see how he does. And from all the conferences that I've attended, all the people like Dr. O'Grady who've spoken on the topic, waiting and see is one of the worst things you can do. At least that's the message that clear.
I totally agree with you, Christy. You can be more right. So definitely prevention's first, and then quick treatment is going to be the second thing. We totally appreciate. I've really learned so much this month about laminitis. So we really do appreciate both you guys. Christy, you've done a fantastic job this month in bringing us all the information, and some great guests like Dr. O'Grady. Dr. O'Grady, go ahead and give out your website so people can go find out more. Obviously, you can also go to thehorse.com/laminitis.
Yeah, we started a website years ago as a informational site. In other words, where somebody can go and get credible information on my website. My website not only contains my publications, but also other clinicians who have published papers in different peer-reviewed journals. Therefore, everything on the site has been reviewed by a group of people, just like you would in medicine or dentistry or so on. The site is www.equipodiatry, EQUIPODIATRY.com, and it's there for the taking. It's an informative website. It's not a form of advertisement.
And that concludes the series on laminitis that thehorse.com did. And, of course, if you want to learn more from The Horse, go to thehorse.com/laminitis. They have a whole bunch of other articles up there as well. We appreciate you being involved in this segment. And that's it for Laminitis. On to something different tomorrow. So we're looking forward to having you back. And don't forget, you can listen to Horses in the Morning every morning, 8 to 10:30 a.m. Eastern Time. Jamie and Jennifer and I, they're every morning live. So we look forward to having you there. And you can also listen to the recorded shows at horsesinthemorning.com as well. Well, everybody, have a safe day. Have a safe ride today. And wear your helmets. We'll be back tomorrow with another new expert and a different horse tip. Until then, stay safe.
The Horse Radio Network and the Horse Radio Network hosts are not responsible for statements of guests or their opinions. Use your own judgment when listening to the tips provided by the experts on Horse Tip Daily.